All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tomorrow's Talent Series Q&A. My name is Jana Toomey. I am with Michigan Technological University Center for Educational Outreach. Tomorrow's Talent Series is all about showcasing in-demand careers through virtual job shadowing and live Q&A events like this one. For the teachers watching, we also have some curriculum resources, so be sure to check those out to incorporate into your classrooms. Today, we are joined by Evelyn Aspinwall and Gina Thorson of Stormy Kromer. Evelyn is a pattern maker and Gina is the president. So welcome, everyone.
Great to be here. Thanks, Jana.
Today, we are going to be learning a bit about your careers in manufacturing. So as we go along here, for anybody watching, if you have a question to submit, make sure you use our Q&A function, which you can see right at the bottoms of your screen. So with that, let's get started. So Gina, can you tell us a little bit about Stormy Kromer and the products that you make?
Sure. So Stormy Kromer is a part of a larger business that my grandfather started, actually. So it's a sewing factory here in Ironwood, the far western UP. And he started it in 1958 and we've been sewing all kinds of different products for medical, recreational, transportation, healthcare, all kinds of industries since the late 50s. We bought the Stormy Kromer brand in 2001, and we are most well known for our iconic wool winter hats. I am wearing one of our female versions of the hat. So hopefully some of the folks watching have seen our hats around. You might think of the red, black plaid as being kind of an iconic look of ours. The products are well worn by people across the Upper Peninsula and the whole Midwest, really. And so we started out making hats, but have since expanded into a whole line of jackets and vests and mittens and accessories and bags and all kinds of things. And all of which we never made apparel before we bought this brand. So it's been an interesting journey, and great people like Evelyn help us make sure that we know what we're doing, and that at the end of the day, we have a really great product that fits well and looks good, that goes to the end customer. So, and we're just excited to be a part of this today.
Awesome. And Evelyn, you're a pattern maker. Can you tell us what does that entail?
I take a sketch and I make it into a garment. It's digitized into our computer system, and the pieces are all arranged and put together, and we make samples and do fittings, and it is quite a process.
That's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about your path into your current position?
I worked for a sportswear company in the early 90s. And when they went automated, we were doing everything by hand with cardboard patterns. And when they went automated, they sent me to a training center in Richardson, Texas. And then when Bob bought Stormy Kromer, I came here, and that's 19 years ago.
Wow. So is there any sort of special education or training that a pattern maker goes through? You kind of mentioned one training, but what does it look like to get into this role?
The software we use, it's a constant learning situation is what it is. You log on, they have webinars once a month, and those are very interactive with questions and answers. And we also have 24/7 tech support if there's ever any questions.
All right. Awesome. What are some of the aspects of this field that made you stay in it for so long?
I find it interesting. It's very satisfying to see something that you worked on as a piece of paper turn into a shirt that people all over the country are wearing. And they're on the internet. We see them in magazines, on TV commercials, and I had a part of all that. So
I'm guessing both of your wardrobes contain quite a fair amount of Stormy Kromer then.
I have a lot of hats.
I'm not really a hat person, but I do have a lot of the other pieces.
Oh. So, what other positions, Evelyn, do you work closely with as a pattern maker?
I work very closely with the research and development, basically all aspects, the cutting, the sewing, every part of it in one way or another would involve the patterning.
And can you tell us a little bit about what it takes to develop a new pattern? We got to see a little bit of it in your video that you made. For those of you tuning in who haven't had the opportunity to see the full Stormy Kromer video, we'll make sure that you check out our Tomorrow's Talent website, which we'll put that URL in this presentation a little bit later. But for those who haven't had a chance yet, can you just walk us through what are the steps that you go through to develop a new pattern?
We have what are called pattern blocks, which is a basic front, a basic back, a basic sleeve. And I would grab those basic pieces and make the modifications needed. Like if they want a pocket on the left-hand side, I can put a pocket. If they want cuffs or a hem, then we just sit and do all that. And then we start with an initial sample. And then we get the sample correct, and then we go into the grading process to develop the different sizes.
Gina, I just would add, like and Evelyn mentioned her a little bit a minute ago, but we have a designer really on staff. Mm-hmm. So she comes up with, she's doing things like looking at trends and what are our competition doing and what are pieces that are missing from our line. And then she and Evelyn work really, really, really closely together, to take her sketches, her ideas, her vision. And then as Evelyn's saying, starting with a basic pattern to figure out how to make the back longer on this and make this different and put a different seam and all of those different things. It's quite a process, honestly. And then to see it, then we see all the different versions. They'll make the first sample and put it on somebody. And, oh no, the sleeves are too short or it doesn't fit right here and try again. And it's really like, it takes, sometimes we get lucky and it's the first or second prototype that is good, but oftentimes it's 3 or 4 or more versions to get it, just right. So it's a very, to do this job, at least in our company, you have to be really collaborative.
And when we were watching the video, you were working with some heavier fabrics. How much does the fabric influence? Like, is it a totally different pattern depending on what type of fabric you're working with? Or how do all of those little details impact your job?
A lot of that is in the designing process because yes, if you decide to make one style out of a completely different fabric, there has to be modifications made to the patterns if you have a lightweight fabric versus a heavyweight fabric.
Do you ever go into a store looking at clothes like, oh, I would have done this differently, I think?
I think I do that all the time, yes. With everything.
Rightfully so. So what are some of the other challenges that you have to kind of troubleshoot and overcome in this position?
I would say the speed in which everything happens. I mean, we are already done with next year and you walk into a meeting and people are talking about 2022 and it's very challenging that you're always looking that year ahead.
Wow. Yeah, and also because on a day-to-day basis, Evelyn is doing stuff that's for right now, today, right now. And then, yes, we're designing so far ahead for the fashion cycle and the retail, how retail works. So it can be complicated.
And I pose this question to both of you, but how has this job, this field changed both due to technology and those consumer trends that you mentioned since you both first got started? Evelyn, do you want to go first, maybe?
It has changed enormously. When I first started, when I first started even here at Jackworth's, we had no computers to do any of the patterning. We cut out pieces of cardboard by hand and cut the material out with electric scissors. and that's how the process was back then.
Oh. What about you, Gina? What are you seeing that is constantly being that's constantly changing now?
Yeah, I mean, from the position that I sit in and kind of thinking about the direction of our product line and where we're going, it's a lot about how are consumer trends changing, and especially how have consumer trends changed during this pandemic, and shopping trends, and what are people looking for when they're looking to purchase, and especially some of our apparel is higher end price points. What are people looking for? And things like sustainability are becoming equally, increasingly important to consumers. And that's something we come back to the factory and think about how can we incorporate more of those practices into our work, because that's beginning to be more important to consumers. Things about the values your company has are beginning to be as important as your products, how well your products are designed and how well they're manufactured. So just kind of keeping tabs on what consumer trends are and what people are looking for when they're making their decision about where to spend their dollars is something that never stops changing, and that you just have to always kind of keep a pulse on as you're moving forward.
And on that note, what are where do you see this company going in the future? What trends are you following?
Well, to some extent, we're not a very trend-driven company. The Stormy Kromer brand, we've had it since 2001, but it's been around since 1903. And so we tend to be more of a classic kind of heritage-based company. And also the price points of our things make them such that when you buy something, we want it to last, for a long time. So trends necessarily aren't something we're chasing, although we are definitely focusing on and putting our resources toward growth. I mean, we are very focused on growing, and we're focused on getting our name beyond just the Midwest, so that it does become a name that is more prominent throughout the northern half of the country, where it is cool and colder weather. And we are growing this year, so it's a great start to where we're heading. And our company really has a focus on Stormy Kromer, because as our company, this is a brand that we own, and we do other contract sewing here. So we sew things for other people, and those contracts can always be taken away because some other company who has us sew something for them might decide to have it sewn in Mexico, or whatever, or drop that product entirely. And Stormy Kromer really is our future, and it is we control the destiny of the Stormy Kromer brand. We're going to continue to grow the apparel line, and we want to, the hats are always going to be the core of who we are, but we would still like our sales and our presence to be more well-rounded throughout the whole collection, and really getting folks wearing not just our hat, but other things as well. And then, one other thing we're focused on is becoming a bit more year-round. Obviously, our business is quite seasonal at the moment, and that presents some business challenges to have, your sales all, sort of focused in the winter months. So as we grow the brand and the recognition and the awareness of the brand, we can go more and more into other seasons with our products to kind of have more of that year-round feel.
Okay. So to both of you, if you could use just one word to describe somebody, the people that are in this field, what word would you use?
Imaginative.
And I was going to say creative. So we were on the same.
We're same page. Yeah.
Yep, very much. Problem solving as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, a lot of our viewers, they're pre-college students. They're considering different careers right now, which is exactly what we're hoping for with this series. Could you tell me, like, what makes pattern making a good career? What are the benefits to having a career like this? Work-life balance wise, or you're living. Why go into pattern making besides the things that we already talked about, the troubleshooting, the creativity aspects?
I think it's a career that is only going to keep advancing. All of the companies are introducing 3D, and now with the internet, and especially with the pandemic and people doing so much stuff online, with the development of 3D, people are doing online dressing rooms where you can try things on virtually. There's just so much to learn. And I think it's just a constant.
I think it's an interesting field. We do some work with a university that has specifically a apparel design program, and some pieces of it are of the degree are more technical, like this sort of work that Evelyn's doing, and some of it's more straight up, very creative, the design aspect. But this position is kind of where the two things intersect, right? Where the creative piece intersects with turning it into something real. And so if you're one of those folks, sometimes people don't want to just do the creative thing, right? They want to still make it, the practical side is important to them too. And I think this is one of those careers that has that point where those two things come together, where you can be creative, but also at the end of the day, like Evelyn said, you can see a shirt that you helped make a pattern for in real life standing in front of you. So I think it's one of those intersecting points of a career is kind of interesting.
So we do have a viewer asking about the salary of a position like this, and of course it can vary based on location and experience and things, but do you have any insight into what a general range is in the field?
It's good.
I really don't. I have been up here in Ironwood for 35 years, and I don't know what other people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the size of the company, the location, all kinds of things. So I think that's a little difficult to talk about.
Yes, and it can vary so much.
Right.
So what words of advice would you have for students who are interested in getting into this field? What can they do now to prepare themselves?
There is so much information just on the internet with YouTube videos, and there is so much that you can teach yourself to go into, learning how to do a lot of this.
I would say too, because I'm going to just talk about my personal connection to this sort of thing. Like, I sew clothes at home for myself, and I started just buying a pattern and, following the directions and doing my best and sewing it together, and which, anyone can do. And, but recently as Evelyn said, I've been like, well, I want this shirt to fit me better. And so I've done my research on, YouTube videos and things like that, where it teaches you how to take someone else's pattern that already exists and make some modifications. And so that could be, if you're interested in, in anything creative, and, even things like sewing is making a comeback as a hobby for people. And again, during the pandemic, it's seen a great resurgence this year with people doing that. And, if this is intriguing to you, find your mom or your grandma that has a sewing machine, and try out some things, and then you can slowly work into, just getting creative and seeing what you can do, going online and finding very, very simple patterns to start with, and then seeing if that sparks your own imagination.
So, do most clothing companies have a position as a pattern maker specifically, or is this a unique position to Stormy Kromer? Are there a lot of pattern makers in the world?
I would assume there are. There are a lot of companies that do their manufacturing even offshore, that do all their designing and pattern making here in the United States.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a pretty big business.
I agree. Again, this university that we work with is based in Wisconsin, and they partner with, there's a lot of companies, even in Wisconsin, that you think about Kohl's and Duluth Trading Company and Land's End, and even then Target over in the Twin Cities. These companies, they all employ people like this who are doing this work. They're going to have a whole army of them, not just one, like a small company like ours. And some of them might even, in some bigger companies, they might focus even on even one aspect of what Evelyn does, not even, she really does it from start to finish. In a big company, someone like her might do something even more focused. So any clothing company needs to have someone like this. I mean, essentially, it's the engineering job for a sewing factory, just to kind of make it maybe a way people could understand a little bit better. So you have to have this to know how to put your garments together.
All right, last question here, unless we see any others come into our chat. Thank you to those of you who have submitted questions so far. So is there anything else that you would like to let students know about this field that we haven't yet discussed?
Just that it's exciting and rewarding, and I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and I would just, this isn't maybe about this position in particular, but I think you might not have woken up today and realized that there's pattern makers in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I think that there are probably many other hidden gems of types of careers that you can have and live in the UP, and live, someplace where you can be outdoors and have those things that you always, that you enjoy. You don't always have to live in a big city to find some of these unique positions that might be hidden somewhere nearby to you.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Thank you to our other Tomorrow's Talent series partners, Gogeeba College, Michigan Works, MyStem Network, CTE directors, and everyone else who's helped make this series possible. For those of you watching, be sure to check out our Tomorrow's Talent series website. We're going to have more manufacturing career videos coming up soon, with a whole bunch of other different fields featured throughout the academic year. So with that, we're going to wrap this up here. But again, thank you, Gina. Thank you, Evelyn, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.